It'll be strength on strength when the Saints offense faces the Vikings defense today. New Orleans was the most explosive offense in the league with 92 plays that gained at least 20 yards, the most in the NFL. They're facing a defense, of course, that has allowed the fewest 20-yard plays this season. And who better to send to talk about the Vikings offense than our own Randy Moss, who got to sit down and reminisce with an old Vikings fan, Adam Thielen.
What's up, dog?
Good to see you.
Man, I thank you.
Back in Minnesota,
Yeah, what's
huh?
up, man? Thank you for having me, bro.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
How was your day?
Nice to be back out there again. Felt like a long break.
Like I say, I appreciate you. Let me come. Being a Minnesota native, give me your greatest memory throughout your lifetime as a Viking fan growing up.
Oh, man. I think just honestly seeing you make those plays, man. As a competitor, as an athlete,
Right.
Seeing you go up and make some of those plays and tossing the ball back to
Mo Williams.
Mo Williams.
Yeah.
Moss caught it at the 11, but now he look at this! To Mo Williams! Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
The improvisation of Randy Moss would win him an Academy Award.
Those were some fun times, and going to that NFC Championship game. Obviously, it didn't turn out the way you wanted it to, or we wanted it to, but just some fun teams to watch, and seeing you and Chris Carter, you guys making those plays. I mean, I'm like, man, I don't want to be a quarterback. I don't want to be a running back. I want to be a receiver.
Something we have in common, I found out, is our basketball background. I wanted to play basketball, got discouraged, stuck with football. Something similar with you.
I think basketball is kind of always my first love. I love to compete on the basketball floor. I don't know, something about it.
Right.
Practices were fun. It was always a competition, with basketball. And I would not be where I am without basketball.
Right.
Because I learned so much about body control,
There you go.
ball skills, and things like that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for basketball.
A lot of guys cannot figure out how to transition their basketball skill set to the football field. If there's one thing with your game that you say, Randy, I count on it every single Sunday, what is that?
That's my hands. When I run a bad route or maybe not, don't beat a guy perfectly, I just rely on my hands and rely on just catching the ball away from my body. You can have a lot more completions when you're catching the ball away from your body and keeping the ball away from the defender.
Right.
So it's something that I try to use to my advantage.
It's Minnesota's first outdoor home playoff game since 1976.
Well, throughout your whole career, what's your best moment?
Being in the playoffs one time.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool feeling.
Yeah.
I don't think you really realize it as a player until you get there.
Right.
And being in the NFL now for 5 years, you realize how hard it is to get there. So just having that opportunity to get into the playoffs and play in that playoff game, obviously, wish we would have won that one.
A lot of guys don't experience that.
I know.
That feeling.
And that still kind of eats me up inside. And I think there's a lot of guys in this locker room that we kind of have a little motivation from that because we know how it feels to lose a close game in the playoffs.
You want more.
You want more.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I think that's why last year was so hard for us because we were coming off that. We all had that feeling of like, man, we want more.
Right.
We don't just want to make it in the playoffs. We want to make more. And then we didn't make the playoffs. So I think we're pretty hungry at this point.
I see you got your hooping skills in there.
Hold up. Now this man wore you during Halloween, right?
Right.
And you asked him what his greatest memory was watching the Vikings?
That's called
You knew what he was about to
You know how many
say.
Viking greats?
No, man, you knew what he was about to say.
He wasn't
going to say Alan Page, Carl Eller.
That was a leading question, but I like it. Respect for that.
I got a question, Randy. Where do you get those gloves? So what hardware store does he buy those gloves at?
Okay, whatever it is,
Yeah, you
they're
ain't
working.
lying.
One thing I will say about the Vikings this year, I think they've been so much fun to watch, in large part because they're doing it with guys who aren't big name guys, who weren't highly recruited in college, weren't high draft picks, that people had pretty low expectations for, and now are just showing out, like Adam and like their quarterback, Case Keenum, Rex.
Really a phenomenal job. you look at it here, Case Keenum literally, guys, is like the third quarterback. You know what I mean? And he's done a phenomenal job. The running backs, all that type of stuff. 5 different offensive linemen. But the thing that I like, what Case Keenum's doing and Pat Shurmur's done a phenomenal job of, is getting the ball to Adam Thielen in space. So, yes, he's got great hands, but he's also a tremendous receiver in space. They'll run levels route where they're pick routes. Here's against man coverage. They get him the ball comes out quick on time. That gives Thielen a chance to make a little run with it, make a move and run against man coverage. But they're creative, and they also, Case Keenum gets rid of it, gives them a chance. Here's one right here that is going to throw a classic over route here and get him the ball in space, put the ball in front of him, let him run after the catch. And I think that's probably one of the more underrated things that Case Keenum does. He's accurate with the football, puts the ball where a guy like Thielen can run with it.
Well, I look at looking at that piece and looking at some of his highlights, the one thing he talked about was his hands and why he trusts in his hands. And I think a lot of wide receivers, on every level, even on a professional level, don't really have a lot of trust in their hands. If you looked at his highlights, he didn't have body catches. Mm-hmm. Body catch, that means he wants to catch the ball before the ball gets to his body or even to the defender. And one thing that really stood out to me when I visited him a couple months back, and I said, take me through the difference between earlier in your career when you just were sitting in meetings, just listening how defenses were preparing for the offense. Now you're the guy that they're preparing for. So, man, kudos to Adam Thielen and his level of how he climbed from the bottom and worked his way to the top.
Let's talk about the defense that he's up against today, because this probably isn't going to be the exact same thing they saw earlier in the season against the Saints. Matt, what's your expectation for what they're bringing?
Well, the Saints are a lot better on defense than they were week 1 when we had them on Monday Night Football in that matchup. But at the same time, I think the Minnesota Vikings are a lot better. Adam Thielen's gotten better as the year's gone on. Stephon Diggs is a playmaker that we don't talk about enough. And really, it all comes back to the quarterback. Case Keenum versus the blitz. There's been no one better this season. Versus the blitz, he has more touchdown passes than any quarterback in the NFL. He's got a higher QBR than any quarterback in the NFL versus the blitz. So Dennis Allen, I know you know, Charles, he loves the blitz. Like he's kind of like Rex. He designs up great blitzes and fun blitzes, but this is going to be a tougher matchup with Case Keenum with the ball in his hands, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that, the cornerbacks for the New Orleans Saints have gotten better playing under Dennis Allen because they've had to, and have gotten better through experience. They possibly have the defensive rookie of the year, but we talk about Ken Crowley. Remember a year ago, he was wearing number 41, and we joked about it a little bit, but through his playing time and experience and playing under Dennis Allen, he's grown, knowing the pressure that he's under, having to play, in some of these pressure situations where it's just you and the receiver and a whole lot of field out there, and you got to go out there and perform. So these guys have built confidence in themselves and in the scheme that they're playing under. So it'll be a tough matchup going against that aggressive defense.
Yeah, they're going to stay aggressive, be who they are. But if this guy is like me, then you better have simulated pressures too, because that's part of the complete package and things. That's what they're missing.
What do you mean
it's
by
not just
what do you mean
well,
by
meaning that
pressure?
you're going to send a linebacker or a safety and maybe drop somebody else into coverage. Might only be a 4-man rush, not just selling out with 5 all the time.
Has the appearance.
And has the appearance of a pressure. Got to give him some kind of illusion. Maybe get the ball thrown, Case Keenum, because he's getting it out of their hands. Matt, you talked about how accurate he is against the blitz. Then don't just feed right into it. Right. Give him something that maybe he thinks he's getting a blitz and he's not. You got to be creative today. Yep. This is a one shot you have. What you did the first time, they torched you with Sam Bradford at quarterback. I mean, you've got to change it up a little bit. You can't be so stubborn, or you're going to end up packing your bags and going home.
I mean, he's proven he's the best QBR in the league when pressured and off play action. So you got to obviously throw something else at him. It's just funny to think this is the guy that, late in the season, a couple months ago, they weren't sure they were ready to announce.
I think they were sure. They were just
publicly, they were not going to announce that he was the starter going forward.
But
and now,
how good a job did Pat Shurmur do, though? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why is he mentioned for all these jobs? Because of the job that he's done. Whether it's Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, whoever it is, he's done a phenomenal job.
And we're giving all this love to the passing game. Their running backs have been a big help, too. And Mort, you've got more on that?
Absolutely. Everybody's talking about the Saints running backs. 2 guys with chips on their shoulder, Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon, the running backs who replaced rookie Dalvin Cook, who tore up his ACL in Week 4. These guys, against the Bears in Week 17, they combined for over 160 yards rushing. Latavius Murray was the guy they signed to replace Adrian Peterson before Dalvin Cook became a revelation to him. And yes, Mike Zimmer has brought a toughness, no excuses to that team. Pat Shermer has been phenomenal. Tony Sperano with that offensive line. But Murray and McKinnon believe they have something to prove today as well, with all the attention going to those Saints running backs. Pam?
Yep, they've got weapons all over the place.